1949 changed everything. Mao Zedong declared the People's Republic of China. The Soviet Union tested its first atomic bomb. Eastern Europe was firmly under Moscow's control, and in Asia, tensions over Formosa, today's Taiwan, were rising as Chiang Kai-shek clung to survival. For Western democracies, the situation was alarming. Communism seemed to be advancing everywhere. By mid-1950, war would erupt in Korea, and fears of communist expansion would reach new heights. But this fear was not born overnight. The so-called Second Red Scare had been building since the late 1940s. In 1947, President Truman launched a loyalty program to screen government employees for communist ties. The House Un-American Activities Committee was already investigating Hollywood. And in January 1950, the conviction of Alger Hiss, accused of perjury connected to Soviet espionage, poured fuel on the fire. Then, in February 1950, came an obscure senator from Wisconsin, Joseph McCarthy. In a speech at Wheeling, West Virginia, he claimed to hold a list of communists working inside the State Department. The number shifted, 205, then 57. But the effect was explosive. Suspicion became a political weapon. That was the birth of what we call McCarthyism. Let's be clear, McCarthy never had a real list, but he tapped into a genuine anxiety. Soviet spies were not a fantasy. Later that same year, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were arrested for passing atomic secrets to Moscow. Decades later, the Venona project confirmed that Soviet agents had indeed infiltrated the U.S. government. So was McCarthy inventing everything? No, but he chose the worst possible weapons: public accusations without evidence, humiliation, fear. His logic? It didn't matter if innocents were crushed, as long as some guilty were caught. The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover played a central role. Hoover's secret files and vast surveillance network fueled the machine of suspicion. The victims were countless. Civil servants lost their jobs. Teachers were dismissed. Union leaders were marginalized. And in Hollywood, the infamous blacklist ruined careers. Charlie Chaplin, accused of communist sympathies, left America in 1952. Orson Welles departed for Europe. Dalton Trumbo, the brilliant screenwriter of Spartacus, was forced to write under pseudonyms. Even Arthur Miller, who later wrote The Crucible as an allegory of McCarthyism, was summoned before Congress. Machiavelli, when the city is threatened, any means are justified. Better to be feared than destroyed. Kant, no. You cannot defend freedom by trampling human dignity. That is a fatal contradiction. The climax came in 1954 with the Army-McCarthy hearings. McCarthy accused the U.S. Army of harboring communists. The hearings were televised, and millions of Americans watched as his aggressive tactics collapsed under their own weight. Then came the sentence that shattered his aura. Attorney Joseph Welch looked at him and said, "Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last?" It struck like a thunderclap. The spell was broken. Hobbes, A. Frightened people must submit to strong authority. Security is worth more than liberty. Tocqueville, no. If democracy sacrifices its principles in the name of fear, it destroys itself. After this, McCarthy was abandoned by his allies. In December 1954, the Senate formally censured him. The Department of Justice distanced itself, and the Supreme Court under Chief Justice Earl Warren reasserted constitutional liberties. McCarthyism collapsed almost overnight. Within 3 years, McCarthy himself was dead, a broken man. Orwell. It was a world of surveillance and denunciation. 1984, but in an American version, Plato, perhaps. But the enemies were not imaginary. The Rosenbergs existed, and sometimes a few restrictions are the price of the city's survival. So how should we judge McCarthy today? Was he a cynical demagogue or a clumsy defender of freedom? Probably both. Yes, he destroyed innocent lives. Yes, he undermined trust in institutions. But he wasn't entirely wrong. Communism was advancing, and Soviet spies were real. The paradox of McCarthyism is clear. McCarthy wanted to defend liberty, but he used totalitarian methods. In trying to save democracy, he betrayed its very foundations. A just cause fought with unjust weapons.